The idea of the bells came from, I grew up in LA. I was born in Hayward, but I went to Los Angeles when I was like 5. So we've been in LA ever since. My family's still there. And so I live in, it's called Mid City, next to Culver City, about 7 or 8 miles east of Venice Beach on Venice Boulevard. Mid City, like south of Hollywood, north of Inglewood, west of East LA, east of West LA, boom. And so I love it there. I love it there very much. And we're pretty close to Sepulveda Boulevard. And Sepulveda Boulevard is the original Camino Real, El Camino Real, which is the path that the missionaries took, right? Going from Mexico up through California, which, it was Mexico, right? Just through the state. And you see them, right? If you're on Sepulveda and there's certain roads, they'll mark it with a little mission bell hanging on a little green, a little green post. But I've also, thought about when you're fifth grade, and they talk to you about the missions, and they tell you how the missionaries were helping all the people, and they taught them to be civilized, and taught them all these new ways of doing things and all this stuff, and then you build a little mission. You Back then, like when I did it, I think I still had to build it. Like I built it out of cardboard. Now you could buy a kit. You don't even have to put any, you just buy a kit, assemble the kit, and then you're done, paint it, and now you know all about San Luis Obispo, or whatever, and, or La Misión de Los Ángeles. And obviously that is wrong information, and I think it's toxic to be teaching that to kids and not give them the full background and history of what happened and what the missionaries did and the obliteration of the native people and genocide and, yeah, the actual history. So I have two pieces that I kind of made from this, and they're bells, they're mission bells that I knitted like a stocking cap, like a beanie, and then I dipped them in hot wax again, and I stretched them over foam that I had turned on a lathe in the shape of the bell. So I let it set up, and then I cast it, right? So as you can imagine, it looks like a knitted, open weave kind of bell. It looks like it's falling apart. So as do, when you see the bells, they have the patina, that like kind of copper patina on it. It's blue or something, blue-green. And so I wanted it to look that way. One of them, it's two bells, a larger and a smaller, that I did copy certain missions. I can't remember right now which ones I was looking at, but the style. And I hung two of them on these like gallows, like where the lynching gallows, and I hang it from the wall, kind of falling forward, with rope. And the bells are hanging there, tied with rope. And um, I think that one is just called On a Mission, which again, I like words. So both physically on a mission, but those missionaries really were on a mission, to wipe out peoples and to just kind of like feed them their religion or whatever their the new way of life that they find civilized, and the people who were there uncivilized. So there was that piece. I have another one called Tras las puertas del Camino Real, which is like behind the doors of El Camino Real, and that piece is another piece that's also one bell, and that one happened because in my first apartment that I lived in Sacramento when I moved here, I had to drive into my apartment through an alley, and I drove, and there was a door that somebody had thrown out. It was like an old door that has that curve, like of the mission, that like little nook. And so I see this door, and it's beautiful, and like that door is mine, So I look at it, and I was like, oh, you are mine. So I park my car, go grab my door, bring it back, and I knew, I was like, oh, there a bell goes in there. So I wove the bottom kind of with chain, that I patina and all that. None of my metal that I use, a lot of it I end up getting new, and I age it. So you look at this, and that's what I want. Even the wood, I age it. I hit, if I use brand new wood, I'm hitting it with like a wire wheel, or I'm brushing it with like a rust, so it'll age. Because I want it to feel natural. Like, I think it might stem from my family. It comes from my family because they chose to take that path as well, for a different reason, right? They're coming as the like kind of the aftermath of like what's happening in Mexico, or what, the amount of opportunity that we have there, and what ends up being offered once you come here, and what you can do and what you could do there. So my dad chose to come here, and he wanted to make a family with my mom, and he had started it in Mexico, and then he was like, nah, I'm not going to be able to provide to my children with it. So he took his own path, right? uh, Less destructive and more mindful. But it can be destructive when we don't know the history, when you don't know that, when you romanticize, when you idealize, when you just see something as beautiful, like I remember those movies, and I was like, oh, that's just so beautiful. And I'm like, oh, he's swooping that woman away on his horse. And I'm like, oh, he kidnapped her. Like, oh no, they were getting kidnapped. Like the revolutionary, like they would come through and like kidnap women and take them and be like, you're mine now. So it's like that, very blurry kind of history, and how toxic that can be for us. But also it's part of the history, and it's beautiful. It's just so many nuances, so much complexity. And so same with colonization. I mean, as much as I'm going to be like, yeah, the Spaniards like really did a number on a lot of countries, and, but then I'm like, I'm a product of that, right? And so I am here because of that. And so it makes you kind of like, I hate you, but I am you, like, so it's like, so yeah, it's just, it makes it so interesting for me to want to learn more about. And that's why, we make art, I think, because it's like, I want to learn more about this, so I want to have a conversation. I'm not making the artwork because I know everything. I'm making the artwork because I want somebody to be like, oh, do you know about that? I don't know, let's have a conversation,